So it's but you know, the bar business isn't a huge market thing. There's things you can do to squeeze, but it's not like a restaurant where you can open it up and start it off with that ribeye being $25 and 3 years later it's $70. You can't do that with beer. But we got some cheap beer if you need it. We got $12 custom brew craft beer, whatever. I've drank in 3 years, so it's I don't know what.
I would think that's where most of my
It's the whole purpose.
Right.
It's buying alcohol and wholesaling. That's really all.
Yeah, I kind of wonder about, you know, some of those icon hunting, like, Cadillac, Continental Club,
Oh, yeah.
or some of those icons, Austin,
Well, see,
what's going to happen when they die.
Steve has been with it for 20 years, but that place had 2 different owners before Steve and Wertheim. So now Steve's got Seaboys, which used to be Trophies down there at the very end of South Congress. Back to where you, like, if you walk across the street, that's where all the used to be back in the day.
Okay.
Yeah, the Seaboys is doing well. It was a weird deal. He came in and pulled down a bunch of like crown molding and stuff, and they found some structural issues. And the guy told him, "Look, if you just never was taking this out,
Right.
we wouldn't have known it."
Yeah.
So he had to go in and do a bunch of structural crap, extra on top of just I don't know.
Yeah.
So, you know, getting investment and things like that, it's just like any startup. For Antos, we got quite a bit of like investment on the part. It's not even it's just a lot of investment.
Yeah, because you figure those places, I mean, Apple, like Saxon, I don't know what is that one, but, you know, someday those guys are going to get old and what's going to happen to them?
Well, the Saxon is interesting because they have a benefactor, someone bought the building and gave a very agreeable lease agreement. I'm friends with the guy that owns the other half of the building. South Austin Music.
Yeah.
And he had to, when that other side was purchased by the person who wanted to save Saxon, he went ahead and bought it his half. So instead of paying rent, he's, 30 years of paying rent.
Yeah.
Now he's got all of it. That's the only way to keep control of that cost.
Like an hour, hour 15, and then there's a happy hour in the kitchen after.
Yeah, I built, before they called it Box, before they called it Full Stack.
Right.
There was no AWS, you knew 12 different products.
Thanks for having us.
We built all kinds of CRUD apps. CRUD is create, read, update, data, application.
Yeah.
This is basically what I got here. It's a CRUD app with a big PayPal. Have a market, get your income and freely and stuff. You get rid of agency models that appear to give too much duplication. Almost everybody's getting their stuff from the agency models. You gotta do 2/3 just like the marketing. Yeah, you guys, but it's certainly marketing. It's marketing on a commodity that has to have that marketing. But as soon as the thing sold, the marketing so that by definition is marketing. I'm trying to just make commodities for a specific.
And to get Chinese.
So we're asking you to tell us who is be seen and be recognized.
Be part of a more diverse and more inclusive culture.
Help us move forward together, because together we are Salesforce.
Juntos somos
It's
Salesforce.
zero budget.
We are Ohana, and Salesforce welcomes all.
And I think they were both.
Thank you.
I got certified for React, but the transactions and the database stuff that I build, I only know how to do it. So it's a totally different type of development than not using relational data. But when you talk about scaling going forward, it's so much cheaper to scale that MongoDB React app than it is to scale.
Does this video play for you guys?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Nice.
So they got front, that's what I'm gonna do. My first one.
Y'all didn't see this one yet. Okay, go. This one's cool.
Super helpful. Some of them are duplicates, but not a lot. Theoretically, everything can happen together. But if you know
So he'll do the spiel, and then I'll invite you up. I have one shadow and math challenges together. Hi, how are you?
Good.
Oh, yeah, Amy, how are you?
I think so.
Okay, how are you? Fantastic. Oh, person.
Yeah, same here.
Oh, man. Thanks for being here. On the website. So, we're always working on one tomorrow. So, as an operations are you ready? Are you taking a class? We want to oh, yeah, that's okay. You gotta hold it up.
All we did was go and do equipment, run through. Yeah, it's really doing that.
I think we're gonna start at top side.
Oh, there it is. Josh. Hey, man. How's it going? Good to see you. Thank you. How's life? Great.
Hi. Welcome. May I have you in? Are you here to start? What's your name?
Oh, it's good for you now. Was that? Yeah, sounds cool, man. Marion, is it too worse?
Nope, we're back. Everyone's
Alright, well, hey everybody, welcome. I'm Josh. This is the intro of the Austin startup scene. And I've got Dana with us today, who I saw in the back there from Mass Challenge. So she'll be joining me up here in just a bit. I've been doing this monthly talk for, I don't know how long, but like probably close to 10 years, like a really, really long time. It's probably one of the first of any of like the meetups or community things that we do here. This was one of the first ones. I think it's actually really just in a lot of ways like encompasses the spirit of this whole place, which is trying to be a welcoming place that helps plug people in and help meet people. And so the spirit of this one is as the name kind of implies, like intro to the startup scene, which is typically for people that are new to Austin or new to tech or new to startups or kind of replugging back into it. And fortunately for the past 10 years, there's always people that are new to Austin that just moved here that are looking to plug into stuff or be part of it. And so every week there's like a bunch of people. And this is a great week. A lot of weeks, there's every single seat is full. Actually every month. And every week we do actually different sessions like this too. So first, tell me a little bit about who's here. So so you're all going to who on the tour? A bunch of you. Okay, awesome. So you're a little bit familiar with what's here. I'm not going to spend the whole time talking about Capital Factory. Anybody here that's a CF member? A couple. Awesome. Who's been to South by Southwest? A bunch of you. Who has a ticket to go to or a badge for this coming South by Southwest next month? Awesome. We'll talk about South by. Anybody here go to UT? Cool. If that big white building wasn't there, you could see UT town. There. Anybody moved here in the past year? A bunch of you. Awesome. This is definitely the right place for that. Anybody born here? Wow. Almost never anybody born here. So apparently there are people that were born here. Yeah. Part of the nature of being the fastest growing city is that kind of by definition almost nobody is actually from here. I came here about 20 years ago. That's like longer than just about everybody that I meet. Who's looking for a job? A couple of you. Awesome. Usually a lot of people that come here are looking to plug into something. Who's looking for investors? A couple. Awesome. Cool. This is a good starting point for that. That's not the focus of this. There's another one of these we actually just did last week. So the first Tuesday of the month every month is just about fundraising. And who's the founder of startup? Awesome, great. That's a lot of who we're trying to get to here. So, again, part of the whole point of what we're here to do, and usually why you're here, is that you want to meet people. You might need to meet a co-founder or someone help you start your business, or you might need to meet, like a mentor, an advisor, somebody that maybe has seen this movie before and can tell you what's going to happen and like can help. Maybe you are looking to try to find your first customer, like you've got something, but you need to get someone to go use it. Or maybe you're looking for an investor. Those are all very common things that people are looking for here. So I actually haven't done this before, but I wanted to try this as an experiment, just kind of pretty rapid fire. Like I just go through everybody, and if you just say off the top of your head, like if you usually you're like, who do you need to meet? Like what are you looking to plug into? Like a little bit of like, why did you come here? And then I'll try to see if I can give you a quick recommendation of somebody you should meet. Anybody else can shout it out too. But if you guys will play along with me, it is part of probably a big point why you're all here anyway too. So I I want to meet entrepreneurs who are starting new companies. That's hopefully why we do this. That's hopefully why a bunch of you are here, so that we can help them. Would you mind going first? You have any ideas? What? Sorry. Want to go first? What did you come here for? Where did you want to go?
Okay, I came here to meet investors, and I just started the first healthcare price comparison website. I just started last 6 months ago, so I'm looking for like investors.
People in that space.
Yeah.
Cool. So we'll talk a little bit about investors here, and about accelerators as well, which usually a lot of reasons why people go to accelerators are looking for investors. But again, I'll tell in a minute. I'll tell you when that other meetup is. You want to come to the intro fundraising because that's about how to meet investors.
Cool. I'm Jeremy. Hi, everybody. I came here to meet you, Josh, because we had a communication back 7, 8 years ago applying for Capital Factory, and it's been cool continuing entrepreneurial journey since. I'm new to Austin. I want to help out however I can, and everybody kept telling me that you're like the guy to talk to, so I'm here to stalk you. I
Mission accomplished.
Hi, Evelyn. I'm here to meet entrepreneurs, startups.
People with startups?
Yes.
Cool. Alright, well you saw almost everybody here is a founder of startups, so you're in the right place. And then this whole building is full of, probably right now, about 1,000 people that are all running startups, so that's a good start too.
She and I are the same company.
They're together? Okay, awesome.
So I'm looking to maybe find a co-founder and just grow my team over here.
Are you technical or business?
I've been doing both, but
What are you looking for, you think?
data science kind of guy.
Looking for more technical.
Yeah, more technical.
Well, a lot of people, there are a lot of people looking for technical co-founders, and there's a couple of different good ways to do that. We should just bring that up in the Q&A part at the end. I know a lot of people that have found technical co-founders in the kitchen, right there, like sitting in the kitchen.
So I'm here just to learn more about Capital Factory in general, but specifically interested in mentors.
Cool. Mentors, fortunately one of the great things about Austin is there are a lot of resources for mentors, like a lot of great ones. We'll talk about that for sure when we talk about accelerators. That's one great resource for mentors. But in particular, just to give you one place to go, if you go to our website, capitalfactory.com/mentors, that's the most popular page of our website. It shows all the different people on there.
Actually, Jeremy stole what I thought was going to be a cute answer when you asked the question, meet you, but more detail. My name's Gary, and I've worked in the defense industry for about 25 years for a major contractor. I retired. I'm doing some consulting. I know what it means to be in the Army, and in the defense industry, I worked on technical innovation or various lack of it. And so I wanted to get my feet on the ground here so I can understand it better. And so
who do you need to meet?
Pardon me?
So who do you need to meet?
You, among other people, but I've met with, there's been a lot of your guys. I've met with Sean Duffy and Melissa and stuff like that. I'm getting a good handle on it. And I've met with Branch Hunted. They gave me a good overview.
Sounds like you're finding the right people.
Yeah, so I apologize.
My name's Reagan. I just moved to Austin like 5 months ago or so, and I just started a job, so I'm not on the job hunt yet, but I just graduated my MBA, so I'm trying to see where that might intersect with a startup in the future.
So you want to meet interesting companies that might be looking for people to help? Awesome.
My name's Frank Teal, and you made me think about how long I've been in Austin, since '94.
That's a long time.
By
5 years.
And yeah, so my story is similar to yours, Gary, actually, but I've been in the high-tech industry in bigger companies for my entire career, and I'm sort of semi-retired now. Just looking, honestly, to get a little more plugged in and look at people's interesting ideas.
Awesome.
Me?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome. I'm just here to learn more about the startup scene in Austin. I'm a recruiter, so trying to kind of just plug in and meet people.
Awesome. Great. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm visiting from San Francisco and wanted to learn more about the tech scene here in Austin because I work in tech in San Francisco.
Oliver Schmaltz. I'm here to increase my chances to get into the accelerator.
Sure, I'm Austin Wells. I am here. I've actually got some coworkers here. I didn't know where to be here, but I'm here to learn from entrepreneurs and what they deal with on a daily basis. So I'm all ears today.
Awesome. We're in a room full of Kelsey.
Hi, I'm Kelsey. I'm a venture associate for Capital Factory's Accelerator. So if you are interested in chatting with me about that, I'll be around after this.
So you want to meet anybody that wants to be an accelerator of Capital Factory?
I want to meet anybody with a tech startup.
Yeah. And Dana? you're gonna
I
do a
wanna
bigger
meet-
intro, but.
Yeah, I wanna meet entrepreneurs creating impactful startups.
Cause your accelerator cycle is open right now,
Yes,
right?
applications are open right now.
Till March 5th, I think.
Through March 13th.
Sorry, 13th.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Spencer from here in Austin. I've done 4 startups in the last 5 years, all of them successful. I'm just wrapping up the 4th one at the moment, and am more of an advisor and investor at this point. I'm a partner at Capital Factory
This isn't
Venture
give us
Fund.
your bio, this is.
Anyway, but I'm here with him as his first board member. He's doing the startup this time.
Alright, and you wanna meet, I know you
I wanna
meet
meet investors and I wanna meet, people that can show me the way.
Awesome, good, so we're gonna talk about, we'll talk more about where to get investors to and what more you need to.
I'm Dan, I'm actually interested in the mentoring program, and I wanted to meet you and visit with you about that.
Cool, but did you hear me talk about the link on the website to the mentor page?
I looked at that, there was an event, I guess, in November sometime frame, I don't know when the next one is.
Oh, into being a
Yeah.
Okay, awesome, great.
Hi, we're Ala and Brian, we're together, we're startup, and we're searching for the technical third, co-founder.
Brian, and I'd like to find individuals that didn't grow up in in Austin. I'm from San Francisco. Just gave it away. But want to find people that have come here that don't have a bias of Austin. But it's interesting hearing you're from San Francisco that have come here and said the opportunities here to
So yeah,
see somebody
searching for
who's
opportunities,
kind of
so people
transplant
searching for
when they're
opportunities as
saying
well.
you're crazy. We have to decide San Francisco or here. So
Alright, we'll talk a bunch about that today, this is a good place for that, and then you heard, like I said, when Dana gets up here, ask more about finding co-founders and stuff, cause that's a topic we can talk about a bunch.
Yeah, my name is Eduardo, I'm from Mexico. We're going to launch in a couple of months an app like Mix, Rocket Mortgage, and Zillow, and we're working with banks and everything. And we are here because we like to get more experience with the startups, try to get the best practices, ideas.
So you want to meet other startups that you can learn from?
Try to bring all these ideas to Mexico. And also the talent. It's really hard to find good talent, and we are looking also for technical talent here, startups that do certain things, and companies and people.
So yeah, that's a big reason why you would work at a co-working space is to be around some of the meet other people that are working on stuff, and same thing, joining an accelerator. We'll talk about all the different accelerators today. Marianne.
Hi, I'm Marianne. I'm the Accelerator Programs event person here. I want to meet people who want to talk about the Texas Manifesto, want to talk about going on road trips, connecting all of the different cities, and making one big Texas.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Melissa Hopkins, and I'm with Mass Challenge Texas. I work with Dana, and I would like to meet all of you and connect with anybody else that you might know who wants to start an application.
Awesome, great. Thanks for everybody for participating in that. We'll keep doing that. Alright, so here's what we're going to cover today. I'm going to talk kind of fast so I can get as much time with Dana up here for Q&A as possible. But I'm going to kind of cover a lot of the basics that that when I talk to people that are new to this, what they want, what they're interested in, or what they talk about. And of course, I can't cover everything. There's probably a lot of other things that could be in here, and you're just getting kind of my view of it. But it's a good start. So what we're not going to cover is a lot of these other things some of the things that came up in here. Like I said, this is the second Tuesday of the month. Last week was the fundraising AMA, and so we always it'll be a similar format, but instead there's a venture capitalist up here with me or somebody else every time, and we go through a little bit of this, and then they're up here answering questions. And every month there's a different venture capitalist up here, so it's actually one easy kind of like secret way to go to meet VCs is if you come here the first Tuesday of the month, there's always a VC here that you can go talk to. You can ask them questions, and there's always a happy hour after that. This is the intro to the Austin startup scene. On the third Tuesday, we do a road trip. That's what Marianne probably was talking about, is we actually fill up a bus full of people and we go to Dallas for the day, or Houston or San Antonio. And then typically, there's also a founder stories going on at the same time here. And then we also do pitch practice every month. If anybody's going to be pitching their startup anywhere at any other events or accelerators or things like that, we'll help you prepare for it. Another great way to learn more is through this Founders Academy. This is something my partner Gordon Doherty puts on. It's a week-long boot camp once a month. That's like a lunch series kind of thing. And Gordon is awesome. He's just like super smart, a really experienced guy, and then in particular just a great educator. He's really just kind of person that, like, I'm not a good educator, like, I'm just not patient enough. He's awesome. He's the people really love going to these. And so really high quality program. That's at foundersacademy.eventbrite.com. So a couple other things, just as kind of background, in addition to the things I'm going to go through here. There's a blog post that's 10 steps to plug into the startup scene. It's not all the things I'm going to go through here today, but that's a bunch of specifically like, go follow these Twitter accounts, go to these meetups, go to these co-working spaces, like things to go do. And that's this URL, bit.ly/plug into ATX startups. And then all these events that we do every week, they all get recorded and live streamed. There's a camera hanging from the ceiling right there that's streaming this right now for some other people that are probably watching. What that means is, remember I said like every month there's like different people up here. Like Dana's going to be up here with me today, and next month there'll be a different community leader up here. And every month there's a different venture capitalist up here. And so you can go back and you can watch a lot of those previous ones. Skip over the beginning part where I do the presentation and listen to the different people asking different questions and giving different answers. That's pretty helpful too. And that's austintechlive.com. So first thing we'll talk about is the Texas Manifesto, and that's really kind of putting some context to Austin. Austin's so fortunate to just be this kind of like shining star city for so long and get so much attention. But overall, just Texas as a whole is really kicking ass. Texas is the fastest growing state and one of the top technology hubs. And within it, it's got 4 of the fastest growing cities, Austin, Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio. There are also 4 of the top biggest cities and 4 of the top tech hubs. And so that creates a really powerful combination because of the geography, because they're so close together. And there's really not anywhere like this around the country where they're so close together and have something that ties them together like this. And so Austin's kind of like the jack of all trades. Austin typically is at the top of every top 10 list. It's best place to live, fastest growing city, and best place for young people, and best places for software engineers to get a job. And we get the most funding, the most money comes into here. Obviously, Apple has their big headquarters they just announced here. Oracle has a big site here. There's a lot of other things going on. But when you think of the whole ecosystem, there's a couple other important parts to it as well. And so, obviously, investors and money are part of that. And while Austin has more VCs based here, there's a lot of money in Texas that could be going into tech and startups that doesn't. That's really more like family office wealth, like more traditional kind of big. It's oil money. It's like families in Houston and Dallas, not in Austin, who have lots of money that could be going to these things. And when you think of they track where all the billionaires live. The billionaires in Texas don't live in Austin. They live in Houston and Dallas. And so if we want to get more of that money flowing into startups, that's one reason to head to those areas is there's a lot of capital there that could be flowing into tech and it traditionally hasn't. And then the second thing is big companies, big corporates. And they're an important part of this puzzle too. They are first customers, case studies, validation. They can be distribution channels. There's a bunch of ways they can be really helpful to startups as they grow. You can have a partnership with a big company. And Texas has more big companies here, more Fortune 500 companies here than any other state other than New York State. But when you're in Austin, 0. If you're an oil and gas company, you're headquartered in Houston. There's like 25 oil and gas companies in Houston. It's Exxon and Shell and all the big ones you'd expect, and probably a bunch you never heard of. And then in Dallas, it's every other kind of company. It's Capital One, AT&T, and American Airlines, and Southwest, and a bunch of different big companies that are based up in Dallas and have their headquarters up there. And those, like I said, can be really strategic partners for a lot of the startups here. San Antonio, not quite as big from those perspectives, but has a USAA, which is one big Fortune 500 company. And San Antonio is a military city. That's actually the biggest military base in the country. So there's tons of military there. It's the cyber command, so cybersecurity command is there. So there's a lot of talent, a lot of cyber, a lot of other things going on down there. And this whole picture is what's really unique. If our whole theory with this manifesto is that if you're a startup, you should just pretend it's one big city. So take advantage of the best of Austin, but go fundraise in Dallas and Houston, and go sell to the big companies up in Dallas, and and work with all the different parts of the state, and recruit talent from all over the state. And if you have a startup that expands geographically, if you expand city by city, this is actually a really great setup because you can have a headquarters in any one of these cities and service all the other 3 cities, all 4 of the cities, the other 3 cities, all from one place. And again, there's not a lot of places you can do that and access all of these 4 really big markets. So that's the manifesto. We launched this about 1.5 years ago. And like I said, part of what we're doing is every month we're literally putting people on like a big bus full of people and going to one of the other cities every day, together to do just like what we were starting together, to introduce people to each other, to smash people together, to bring investors and entrepreneurs and corporates and others together to help make connections and make things happen. We opened an office in Dallas about 6 months ago. So it was our second office other than here. It's off to a great start, helping to kind of establish a beachhead up there and let us do a lot more work there. And then we've been still working without the office in Houston and in San Antonio. We have partners in all the other cities, and we're hiring 2 people in Houston right now. And just to put this all in context, because I know Dana's here with Mass Challenge, they have a program running here in Austin, and I believe you already announced that you're.
Well, we're launching a program in Houston.
Launching a program. Yeah, I wasn't sure what was that.
I'll talk all about
But there's a program coming in Houston as well, so they're obviously drinking the same Kool-Aid and really get this picture of how powerful it is. All right, so quick history lesson. How did Austin and Texas become a tech hub? Pretty much everybody I ask, it comes back to this guy. His name's George Kosmetsky, and he was a tech entrepreneur. He founded a software company in like I think the 70s or 80s called Teledyne, which was a national computer company. He then, after making a lot of money and getting more into civic life and other things like that, got very involved here in the city and at the university. He helped create the IC Squared Institute and the Austin Technology Incubator, which is one of the oldest incubators in the country. Did a lot of things to really work on tying together the city and the university and the tech community. And then in particular, one of his biggest legacies was the MCC company, which came here. And that building no longer says MCC on it. It's now the West Pickle Research Center of UT up near the Domain. But this was one of the first things that really put Austin on the map. And this was a big public-private partnership designed to help us be more competitive with the Japanese at the time, who were kind of like, we were worried about them and being kind of outsmarting us on chip design and chip production. And so this was a whole bunch of big companies getting together with government incentives to create this big research center. And that was one of the things that really put, it seemed like an inflection point that from that point forward, it brought a bunch of talent here and really put Austin on the map. And then we, saw TI and Dell and Motorola and, AMD and obviously a lot of other chip companies that have been based in Austin. This is a big reason this is where that talent came from. But that was like this really big kind of seminal moment was MCC when it came here. Another Semitech was another part of that. That was another name for the company associated with that. And then another one was Dell. When I came here about 20 years ago, this was a Dell town. That's what it was known for. That's what everybody talked about. Everybody worked at Dell, and in all over the country, Austin was known as the place where Dell was. And Dell, in addition to having his name all over the city with the Jewish Community Center and the Children's Hospital and the medical school and things like that, he really created a whole ecosystem that grew out of that, because there were so many people that were recruited into Dell, that formed teams at Dell, that learned a ton of things at Dell as being part of this company that was growing super fast, who made a lot of money, who became millionaires, and then could go start their own companies or invest in other people or become venture capitalists. There's really a ton of this ecosystem, one way or another, ties back to Dell, and I think that's another really key pillar in what helped to make this a tech ecosystem. And then there's a ton of other things that happened after that, and obviously a lot of other people and companies that could be part of it. There's something called Tivoli, which was really kind of a key inflection point for Austin. Vignette, when I came here in 1999, was a really hot .com company that has a whole legacy that came out of it. More recently, companies like Bizarre Voice or HomeWay or Indeed, maybe some of the up-and-coming companies like WP Engine or Bumble or others. But I think these are some of the ones that it goes back to. So, you came here to plug into the startup community. One of the first places to go do that is here at Capital Factory, and that's why we do this event, and that's where we're trying to be. And Capital Factory is the center of gravity for entrepreneurs here in Austin and in Texas. And what's it mean to be the center of gravity? It means to be kind of like the starting point. And part of that is that this is a place where there's like tons of stuff happening all the time, every day. And so every day there's meetups and events and things coming on that are mostly free and open to the public that you can come to and be part of, and use them to go connect and meet other people that can go with you. And that's really what this little place is about. It's not about being a place to go rent a desk or an office. You can rent a desk or an office here, but it's really about going to a place where you're going to meet people that are going to help you. And that's the idea, is that everybody here is working on tech and startups, and everybody here is somebody that maybe you could work with or do something with. And then, so one, you can just start coming to stuff that's here, because that's free and they're happening all the time. You can get a membership here, and again, getting a membership here is it's less about, oh wow, I really need a desk, and more about, I want to surround myself with everybody else who's thinking about working on startups all day, because of things that are good things that are going to come out of that. So that's a great starting point. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly, because we'll talk about this more in detail at the fundraising AMA, but a lot of people that come to this the reason you're coming here is because you don't already have a big network. And maybe you probably already haven't raised funding before. And so that's a big reason why people go to accelerators, is because they're looking to increase their network, and they're looking to go, and they don't have, and they're looking to raise money, and they're looking to grow. And so there are a lot of accelerators and different options for you here in Austin and in Texas. And so much that you don't even all fit on one slide. And so these are all the for-profit accelerators, and a little bit of trying to kind of, they're not really apples to apples, but trying my best to make them kind of apples to apples and to help compare them. And you can see there's most of them in Austin, but they're in the other cities as well. And a lot of them focus on tech startups, but some have different focuses on different areas like health or retail or esports or social impact. And so a bunch of different options there. And then there's also a number of different nonprofit accelerators as well. Many of them associated with universities. Mass Challenge being another great example, and you're going to learn much more about them today. I have them highlighted up there because they're, like I said, their cycle's open right now, and so they're one that you can apply for right now. But lots of different options there. And then also, that's another reason why often why people go to an angel network, is because they don't already have a big network of their own. And there are also a ton of angel networks here in Texas. And not only there are a lot of them, but we actually have two of the biggest and most active angel groups in the country. So the Central Texas Angel Network in Austin and the Houston Angel Network are actually always basically competing for like the #1 spot for who like deployed the most money and did the most deals. And so they're actually really active, and they syndicate deals together between all of them. So if one of them does it, they'll kind of pass the hat around all the other ones. So there's a bunch of different options here, and this seems to be growing as well. And that's a good way to get in front of people. So another thing you have to mention is the University of Texas. Like I said, it's just north of us. But that's a huge asset of Austin. It obviously brings so much talent here. You can't really have a great startup city without a great university. And focusing again on the people that you want to meet, the people at UT you really want to know. Bob Metcalf, who is the professor of innovation, he basically runs the innovation center at the engineering school, but he was the inventor of Ethernet, like literally plugged some of the first computers together. He founded a company called 3Com, which became a multi-billion-dollar company, creating the first Ethernet cards and other kind of networking gear. He's had a bunch of other careers as a publisher, as a venture capitalist, and now as at the university. And he just, all he wants to do is go find people that are building interesting things and go help them be successful and grow. And he's just awesome, super helpful, super connected, and a really great resource to have here. Also, Mitch Jacobson, who now runs the Austin Technology Incubator that I mentioned before. So that's a great resource as well. And in particular, while there's lots of different accelerators and incubators and programs, they tend to focus on, they would say they focus on deep tech or hard tech problems that are capital intensive and require raising a lot of money. Those are often things that come out of university research and things like that. So they can help with lots of different things. That's in particular one of their sweet spots and something they can be very helpful with. And then also, one of my co-founders here at Capital Factory, Melanie Price, she's a serial entrepreneur herself, but right now she actually runs all the innovation and commercialization programming at the medical school. So everything having to do with health, innovation, and things like that. So she's another great resource to know there too. And the last one to mention there is Texas Venture Labs. That's now run by John Butler. Texas Venture Labs is a really interesting accelerator program. It's different than a lot of other ones that you might see in that actually the people going through the accelerator are MBA students. So your company gets into the accelerator, and then you get assigned a team of MBA students who basically work on a project for you for free for the semester. And that's your acceleration, is you get this team of MBAs helping you. And one of the things I'm actually really proud of, and I think is a great sign of the collaborative nature here in Austin, is while Capital Factory has over the past couple of years had many of our startups that we've invested in go through Texas Venture Labs and get that help. Last year, Capital Factory actually went through Texas Venture Labs And we got a team of MBAs assigned to us, helping us. And so Capital Factory went through Texas Venture Labs. Well, you know, many years into it, but it was kind of fun. Another great thing you need to know about to plug in is Austin Startup Week. That happens in October, and that's all about plugging into the startup community. It's like a whole week of it and a week of programming, so that's still a ways away, but to throw that on your radar for October. It happens the week before the Austin City Limits Music Festival. And the thing that should be on everybody's mind right now is South by Southwest, because that's coming up in less than a month now. There's like a countdown here at Capital Factory. We generally know, like, it's 24 days today till South by. Everybody knows how many days it is till South by, because everywhere in here scrambling, trying to get ready for South by. South by, it's like the Super Bowl of the startup community, you know, for the year for us and for the city, and that's when the most stuff's going on. It takes over all of downtown, and it's a really a great opportunity for you being here in Austin. And so there's really two ways to do South by. There's the official way, which is to get a badge, which is totally worth it. It's expensive, but there's a lot of great programming and things you get to be part of, and there's a lot of things you can only do if you have a badge. So that's runs. The cheapest, it's about $800. I think it's about $1,200 if you have to pay full price. So not accessible to everybody, but that's definitely worth it. It's a great experience. But also, if you don't have a badge, you can totally do South by without a badge. Like, there's just as much stuff happening for South by Southwest that's not official. It doesn't require a badge. And so I wouldn't think of it like, oh, I don't have a badge, I can't do South by Southwest. Like, no, there's like a million things going on. And really, while like obviously the crowd, it's fun and there's these big crowds and big parties and companies come spend a lot of money, like the best part of South by Southwest is not being in the biggest party in the loudest place. It's like actually getting into the smallest room with like the best group of people that you would want to go meet and be part of. And that's what's so great about South by, is there's a lot of those kind of small group type things happening. And every company is organizing these small intimate events and things that might be related to what you're working on that you can go be part of. And as a startup, it's really hard to stick out. So one of the best things you can do is just organize a dinner. Just organizing a small group and then really do your homework, go look at who are all the people coming to South by, reach out to them, invite people you'd be psyched to be at dinner with, and influencers in your industry or potential customers or other people to come to a dinner or something like that. And then the other way to take the most advantage of South by Southwest as a startup is the Startup Crawl. This is it's an event that we help put on. It's going to be the 18th Startup Crawl coming up next month. So we've been doing it for a long time. We do it twice a year, and that really was actually created because it's so hard for a startup to get noticed at South by. And so, because you can literally spend $20,000 and like not get noticed because companies are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so the Startup Crawl is the biggest event at South by. It's the biggest party at South by. It's on Friday when things kick off. And it's a takeover of this whole building and then a whole bunch of other locations downtown, where basically all the members of the startup community throw a party at the same time. And then it's there's tables and booths for startups so they can show off the stuff that they're working on. And it's both kind of a big recruiting event, and it's also a great way to get publicity. And it costs a couple $100 to be part of it. And so the idea is like, the startups are the star of the show, and it's really cheap. That's Friday that kicks off South by, and that's atxstartupcrawl.com. And just a few more things before we open up to Q&A, but a new addition to this deck is the Army Futures Command, and this is a new really important part of Austin and our technology and startup community. And this is something that's new over the past 6 months, but about 2 years we've had small groups from the defense industry coming into Austin and thinking about how they plug in work with startups, because they're trying to figure out how they can adopt technology and use things to make them more effective. But 6 months ago they announced a major reorganization of the Army. They created not just a little innovation unit, but actually like put all of the R&D of the Army, which is tens of billions of dollars a year, all under this one organization, this one command. And they put that here in Austin, and it's the only command like this. It's only 4-star general who's west of the Mississippi, which for them is like a really big deal. Like everybody's on the East Coast, everybody's in DC, everybody's together, and that was part of them trying to get them to think different and like put them in a different place. And usually it's always on an Army base too. It's like fortified, right? And this one's in the middle of downtown Austin, which is also really unusual because they want them to integrate with the business community. And so there's a bunch of people in kind of regular offices a few blocks from here But the way to think about it is they have an accelerator too. They don't call it that, but that's what it is. It's like if you looked at it, you're like, oh, that's an accelerator. They like source a whole bunch of companies and pick a few that they want to help, and they give them resources and help to go make them successful. They have a few different programs like that, and that's what they're going to be running here at Capital Factory. And in about just a few weeks, we're going to open up a new floor here, the 8th floor, and that is all totally focused on defense innovation, all different government agencies that are based there. And if you're a startup that wants to do anything with the military or the government, like that's the place to go do that. And so this is a really big deal. I think it's really a big deal for Austin. Right, you know, the MCC and Semitech that I talked about at the beginning, that happened in the 80s, you know, that was 40 years ago. I think 30 or 40 years from now, we're going to look back on Army Futures Command in a similar kind of way. Be like, oh wow, remember when Army Futures Command came, and look at all the things that came out of that. It's going to be like that for Austin. And with that, I'd love to invite Dana up here. If you want to come join us, and we'll talk a little bit about Mass Challenge, and then open it up to all of you for a Q&A. So come up here.
Very orange in that picture.
It is very orange. It's even more orange there. If you look here, it's not quite so.
Okay, must be the projector.
Yeah.
These are for you.
Oh, cool.
Key date cards with a discount code specific to Capital Factory.
Awesome. Well, I won't forget.
Give them out to startups.
Yeah. Well, I'll keep it normal myself.
Okay.
Okay, I'll give some out. Dana, thanks for joining us. And Dana's here with Mass Challenge. Mass Challenge is an accelerator program that started in Massachusetts, in Boston, and it has expanded all over the world. And a few years ago came here to Austin. So I've already mentioned multiple times that you have a cycle open right now. You can apply right now for Mass Challenge. But you want to just real quickly tell us a little bit about Mass Challenge?
Yeah, Mass Challenge is the world's largest not-for-profit no-equity startup accelerator, founded in Boston in 2008, and now we've expanded to have 7 offices internationally, including Mexico City, Texas, which is domestic. We also have Boston and Rhode Island, and then we have the UK, Switzerland, and Israel as well.
Domestic depends on your definition.
True, we are Texas.
So.
Texas, and we kind of do things on our own, but if you look at like geography, we're landlocked with the rest of the country for sure. So yeah, this upcoming accelerator here in Texas will be Mass Challenge's 43rd accelerator. We've worked with over 1,900 startups who have gone on to raise more than $4 billion, generate more than $2 billion in revenue, and have created more than 120,000 jobs. So we think those metrics really stand to show how strong our model is, and the not-for-profit competition model can really set startups up for success. One of the biggest differentiators, in addition to the no equity, is that we give away equity-free cash prizes. So because we're a competition model, you come in, you get accepted into the program, you get to take advantage of everything, and part of that process is competing for a piece of the pie. And we're giving away up to $500,000 again this year in Texas.
What's the most any one company is? Last year, what's the most one?
$100,000. We gave away 200Ks, 275, 250, and 225.
So yeah, maybe you could get a bit more.
Yeah, it's totally possible.
And I didn't meet you at Mass Challenge. I met you here in Austin. So this is not your first accelerator program here. And you were working with another accelerator program, which was Dream It.
Yes.
Wait, did you come in the middle of Dream It here, or were you at the beginning of Dream It here?
Well, I joined Dream It in 2012 as they were planning their expansion into Austin. So you and I worked together while you were opening
So
this
you were here when Trendkite started, and you brought them here.
Yeah.
And it was like the two of them.
In the closet.
Well, they started over there in the co-working space.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And they which Trendkite just sold for like $200 million like 2 weeks ago. And so this was 2013. And it was the two of them, and they just started slowly building their sales team and taking over the entire co-working space. And they were just they were running a whole call center out there in the middle. And that was a good sign, obviously, because they were very, very successful.
Yeah, and they're actually, maybe your experience is different, but my experience with accelerators is they're really only one of maybe a small handful of companies I've seen sign a term sheet around their end of the accelerator.
They got funded right coming out of it.
The day before they signed their term sheet.
From Silverton.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, which actually I actually introduced me to Silverton.
Awesome.
I got a little bonus for that. And I got to actually that's how I got to invest directly in TrendKite. So I got to make a small investment right there.
Well, congratulations.
It's been a good month. So yeah, awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today. And when you filled out the form to sign up for this, it asked you to ask a question. And you know, we don't have to just go through all the questions, but we just kind of put them up there, and it kind of it's like a jog your memory. Like, these are the questions you asked. Hopefully, if we got them right, as you were signing up. And from here, we really just, you know, kind of open it up to all of you, and you can ask us anything you want. In particular, well, we can talk about fundraising. There is a whole other one just about fundraising. But I think, you know, talking about how do you plug into the startup scene, how do you get plugged into Austin, specifically about accelerators, since that is, so we have Mass Challenge here today, and that's a big part of what people are usually interested in, how that's a big way to plug into the startup scene, is through that.
For Dana, question. Nonprofit, are you nonprofit or are you investing in nonprofit?
Good question.
We are a not-for-profit. We're industry agnostic, so Mass Challenge, the organization, supports all startups, all early stage startups from any industry, from anywhere in the world. So we are a not-for-profit, which is, we use corporate partnerships. That's always the next question, so I'll just go there. So we,
that's your base.
Yeah, the corporate partnerships are the ones that fund our operations.
And they don't make a profit?
No, they're essentially partnering. So when they come in and join us, they're partnering with us for a specific set of deliverables, and that's a little bit different for everybody. So, for instance, we just ran a very specific competition with Ingram Micro because they were looking for new ideas, to put in their product pipeline, but also they want to be ahead of the trends. They want to know what's coming and have their finger on the pulse. So we created a competition with Ingram Micro that gave them access to startups in 3 of our regions, and then it was open to any startup in those 3 regions. And that was Israel, Boston, and Texas, where we ran that competition. And in the end, I think they ended up with 3 award winners, and 10 total startups get to join them at the Ingram Micro Summit.
I'll tell you, hands off to you for a business that's nonprofit, because it's somewhat toxic. We wanted to go nonprofit because we're developing a social network for the homeless. So we thought, okay, we'll go nonprofit, and we failed because we couldn't raise money. Everybody was running from it. So you got a good job.
Yeah, Mass Challenge also started at the height of the recession in 2008. So when it's a recession, governments and other organizations kind of want to put a little bit more money out instead of keeping it in. So our founder, I mean, he literally had this idea that woke him up in the middle of the night, and then 2 weeks later, he had investments from the state of Massachusetts and Microsoft.
Okay.
Well, continuing with this idea about investors, I have heard that the Austin ecosystem of startups is great. Everything is really open, but the VCs and the capital is not as coordinated as in San Francisco and as New York, and it's a real challenge here. So what is your opinion about that? I know like Capital Factory in such a way they would like to do the marketplace between great startups and the capital, but what are your thoughts about it, and how we can overcome challenges regarding the VC?
It's a good question, but the context of it really matters. So first of all, I think that sentence is probably true, but if you substituted any other state or city or anything into that sentence, it would also be true, because nowhere has any kind of like investment ecosystem that compares to Silicon Valley and New York. So it's just like, yes, that's true of anywhere that's not those places. So you can say that about anything, and that would probably be true. And of all those other places, Austin's one of the best places. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, yes, like you're right. Like it's not Silicon Valley, you know, but like, but based on how many companies get funded, based on the number of VCs, based on the competition in the ecosystem, it's going to be that. Now, anywhere that's not Silicon Valley and a little bit in New York, it's really a different funding environment, and there are some kinds of companies that really can probably only get funded in Silicon Valley, particularly tending to be like really heavy consumer businesses. those are often really difficult to get funded outside of that area. And the mechanics are gonna look a little bit different. But I don't think what you just said is actually anything about Austin. That's just about not Silicon Valley. And again, of all the other places, Austin's actually probably one of the best. And I've been here for like 20 years, and it's the best now it's ever been. Like, you know, like it's the, especially when I got here 20 years ago, the scene was completely dominated by Austin Ventures, by one firm. And that was actually not a very good environment. They actually had a lot of money, like they could invest. They were very successful. They built some very successful companies. But as a founder going, it was like you had one place to go, and if they said no, you were tainted, and there was no competition between them. And now it's a much more diverse environment with a whole bunch of smaller funds, and that's good for you. That means like there's competition, and they have to work a little bit harder, and there's more new people coming into the market because everybody wants to move to Austin. Guess what? VCs want to move to Austin too. You know, and they're moving here from Silicon Valley. Mithril, which is one of Peter Thiel's venture funds, just moved their whole firm here from Silicon Valley, and they're not the only ones doing that.
So if you died,
sorry,
I'm just being weird. I'm just being weird.
Yeah.
But truth be told, in a way that you've changed the city, because I've heard from a number of people, this is where you go. Something happened to you, what would happen to Austin?
Austin has a life insurance policy.
So they're set.
Yeah, we're okay.
But I mean, the question is, I'm blowing it out a little bit.
No, it's not
True,
100%.
like, I want to understand.
Not at all. You know, like I'm a magnifying glass. Like there's all this awesome stuff going on. I'm a great cheerleader. Like I help, you know, get attention for it. But no, it's not about me. I mean, not at all.
Do you have competition? Is there anybody that competes with your business?
With the Capital Factory? I mean, you know, that's kind of a biased question. I mean, no, I don't think so. But I don't think anybody else is trying to do what we do. Like we're not trying to do the same thing. And so there's three things that are really unique about Capital Factory that I think nobody else is even trying to go do. So we are the best because we're the only ones trying to go do it. And one of them is being the center of gravity. No one's trying to be the center of gravity. Like we're trying really hard to be the center of gravity. People I've hired, and that's their only job is to manage that and make that happen. We have almost 80 people on the team here. There's nobody else in the world of what we're doing that has 80 people on their team in Austin. You know, like it's just a different kind of thing, and no one's trying to go do that. And having a big place where everybody's coming through and are making those connections. The second thing is this focus on Texas. Like there's VCs that maybe only invest in Texas, but they're still trying to pick the 10 best companies in Texas. And we're like, no. We're like on a mission from God. We're gonna know every company in Texas and every investor in Texas, and we're gonna physically run all over the state, connecting all of them together. And there's nobody else trying to go do that. And then the third thing is actually the Army stuff. And that's not something we even tried to go do, but Austin has become a center of gravity for defense innovation by their choice, and somewhat by default, we've now become a center of gravity for that too. And there aren't really many other groups like that focused on the defense industry. So that's been really interesting to kind of do. But to me, those three things are very unique about what we do. And while we do have co-working here, and yes, there are other people that do co-working. So technically, we have competition in that, you know. But that we don't think of that as the important part of our business, you know.
You're a Series C to Series B founder. Where would you say the breakdown is of the headquarters located around the city?
You can take that one, yeah.
This is probably a somewhat religious question. Like people have strong feelings about it based on their own kind of things. Like I'm a downtown guy. I'm here. I'm downtown. We have this. My theory is we're actually at peak downtown right now. Like this is like as good as Austin downtown is ever gonna get. Like it's just like it's been getting better and better. There's all these new buildings and new people here and new things and great restaurants and like I'm not saying it's like about to get terrible or something. I just think like it's great. It's really a great place to be. Sure. And it is the desirable place to be. The only reason you're not downtown, if you are somewhere else, it's because you couldn't go downtown. And every company, everyone else, first thing they're gonna try to do is go downtown. The reason you're not downtown is you can't find enough parking. That's the reason everybody leaves. That's the reason. It's like at some point you get a couple hundred employees, you're like, I just literally cannot get enough parking for my employees, and you have to go somewhere else. And well, Spencer's saying money. I mean, the Domain is just as expensive as downtown. You know, like I mean, the Domain is like our second downtown, which is north of here. You know, by the Arboretum, and that is becoming the new like a second center of Austin and a new downtown. But it is really, I mean, they're building really nice buildings that are very expensive. They do have much more parking there. That's like the one big.
Well, like Indeed is moving up there.
Well, Indeed's everywhere.
Yeah.
Indeed's all over the city. I mean,
Yeah.
Indeed has.
Well, they just bought it like their building.
I know,
Just took up
they're
building
building downtown,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So it's just, you know, it's like the HomeAway, a lot of these, they have to be everywhere, right? So for my bias is downtown. Downtown's where the energy is. Most of the small startups are downtown because actually it's easier to be downtown when you're small. And it's so walkable, like all these other things. The Domain is a great place to be too. And if you're like up north, you're more likely to then kind of converge on the Domain because there's a lot of the same kinds of amenities, but it's not cheap. That's not a cheaper place to go at all. And then you can spread out from there. So there's like an ecosystem around the Domain. The 360 loop around downtown is like another. There's like a lot of businesses, you know, office buildings all around the 360. 360 is the highway.
Oh,
so,
okay.
So like the Capital Texas Highway around, which is a circle around Texas.
Okay.
Or sorry, around Austin. And then kind of like South Congress, that's north, south of the river. Start like kind of like that's another kind of like funky, eclectic kind of place where there's a bunch of small companies down there.
Cool. So in downtown, where are the entrepreneurs hanging out if they're not here at the Capital Factory?
No, they're all here. No, I'm just kidding. It's basically 6th Street. I mean, it's like it branches off of that in different directions.
Downtown's just not that big.
Yeah,
it's literally like
downtown's
15 blocks by 3
1 mile,
blocks.
Yeah. So it's kind of, I'd say it kind of like, it forks off 6th Street, but it's all the way up and down 6th Street off all the other cities and all these towers downtown, you know?
But I would say even like look for where other significant community integrators and partners are. So Galvanize is in the 2nd Street district, and WeWork has like 3 offices right here between the new West View and then WeWork Congress and then the Chase Tower.
And Industrious is opening a second place.
Right, and the Riveter is coming here, or they may already be here by now.
No, they're coming.
They're coming, and then there's
Refinery.
the refinery, and
So there's a lot of options. There's co-working options. I mean, I think the reason to be downtown primarily actually it's just about recruiting. Like if it doesn't matter to you at all, like downtown's expensive, and you know you could probably do it just about anywhere. There's just it's very competitive to recruit talent, and people like to work downtown. Yeah. And so like I think that's actually the biggest factor is just actually it's a desirable place to work, and you're competing against people, and one of the perks is getting to work downtown or getting to work in a good spot.
One of the perks is parking. You can offer parking in
Having a
downtown.
parking spot downtown.
That is a
I know a few things about parking.
Continuing on the recruiting, what would you say are the toughest positions to fill in Austin?
I think it's going to be an engineer, personally, but in general, my understanding is that it's very hard to get top engineering talent, just because they get snagged up by the bigger companies with the big sexy salaries and the big benefits packages. So UT Austin does an amazing job grooming potential talent in the engineering world. However, they also have the IBMs, the Microsofts, Facebooks, Googles, everybody just in there like scooping them up because they're all competing with each other.
Right, but sales and marketing should be fairly easy.
So I agree with Dana. I think that's also in a similar way to the other question. It's not actually an Austin thing. I mean, it's easier to hire software engineers in Austin than like most other places. It's just hard to hire software engineers everywhere, right? You know, and like they're just very much in demand, so they're hard to get. They go quickly. All this, everything you said is true. I don't think that's like a unique to Austin problem. And actually, I'd say Austin's better than it's easier to hire a software engineer here than it is in San Antonio. You know, like or not back in San Antonio. Great, but like just compared to a lot of other places, right, or Miami, right, or something like that. And so, so the two pieces of talent that I think are really hard to find here. I think it's hard to find experienced consumer marketing people. So there's a lot of B2B marketing people. They're very good at that. A lot of B2B sales, enterprise sales, all kinds of sales and service and operations. Like we're really good at that. I've known a lot of people that know a lot about that. But somebody that knows how to really take a consumer product to market, kind of building on not as many consumer companies here, that's pretty hard to find. And you probably have to import that person. Like you probably move that person here from Silicon Valley. Fortunately, it's not that hard to move people here, but like that's probably what you gotta go do. And then And then probably the last thing anybody here wants to hear, but experienced CEOs who can scale a company and grow it. And while I'm the last one to want to remove a CEO or not have the founder do it, like that's my preference. There is growing a company is like a set of experiences and skills that like you learn and like you get good at, and there are people that are really good at that. And we don't have as many of them here. Fortunately, they're more coming, like they're moving here. But as companies really start to get traction, it's very common that in Series B, Series C, later stages, that other senior leadership come into the team, and there's not as much of that there.
Thanks.
I agree with him. You were looking at me and I totally agree with him on all that.
Do you find VC money comes from out of state sometime, like from San Francisco, say, that they're kind of trying to get in on the Austin, the up and coming startup guys?
I think so. I think there's a big light on Austin right now in general for everything that has been accomplished in the last 25 years. And so people, on one aspect, we're kind of under a little bit of a microscope, and people really want to know, like, what's the secret sauce? Why are they booming so hard? I'm sure you all read the New York Times article over the holidays, right? Christmas, yeah.
It's in every article.
That's your birthday? I'm the day after Christmas. So anyway, I feel like Austin's under a little bit of a microscope right now, especially with the Army's Future Command locking in on that, and then the news of like Mithril moving here and other funds popping up, especially in the early stage environment. But I think one of the biggest differentiators for Austin is like we are an equal player with everybody, and so we're not trying to like take from Silicon Valley or from Boston or New York or anything like that.
Yeah. What was the question again? I lost my thought. The question was funding.
Oh yeah, it was just because I keep hearing in San Francisco that they're like, we got to get out of here. They're trying to move the money out of San Francisco. I'm just curious.
Yeah, so I think there's three kinds of investors. There's no, I'm not going to invest in Austin, and that's like kind of the traditional Silicon Valley perspective, and that group is getting smaller.
Yeah.
And then there's I'll look at deals. I mean, Silicon Valley's getting really expensive and overpriced. Yeah, I'll look at deals other places, but I need to know somebody there because it's usually harder to get somebody to be your first investor when they're far away. Like the person who's like your seed investor at that stage where you're figuring things out, they usually want to be really close to you and like be involved and help you. So it's harder to get them. And they're more likely to invest as your Series A when you've got a local investor who's the seed investor. And they know, even better if they know that investor. So they kind of like, cause they do deals together a lot, right? Like, so that, it's more common that you would get your seed money, your first couple, like $500,000 to a couple $1 million from a local VC. And then the Silicon Valley VC or other VC is now kind of coming into the next round of funding.
Do you see that happening with who you've supported in the
a lot. Very a lot. And then the third group is the VCs from the other places who are like more like the pioneers, like they're like, no, like I'm going to Austin, like I'm gonna go source my own deals, and like they're doing that too, right? And like not Mithril who actually moved here, but Founders Fund's doing more deals here. Chicago Ventures comes here. There's people that like flyover capital. There's people that are like coming here, intentional, trying to make relationships. And they're doing the sourcing, and they're coming on a regular basis, so they're comfortable leading those deals and doing them. And then so I think there's those three buckets. And the trend of it all is more of them that will do it here. More of the other two buckets, right? I mean, like I won't do Austin buckets getting smaller, and the other buckets are getting bigger.
And one other question, sorry I'm taking up too much, but I'm so curious, you're so useful, is that it's very comfortable in the city. So do you think people, when they're happy, work harder, or when they're miserable, work harder? Because in San Francisco, everybody's miserable, and we've spent some time there, and I want to die. But
is that true?
I'm trying to, well, she would maybe disagree. Okay.
It's definitely slower here. Yeah.
So is there correlation? Is there a correlation to comfort and productivity?
Yeah.
Like I'm just it's
a really good question. I think as a look in every and you can go individual people all over on people, right? We're the fastest growing city and everyone's moving here. Where are they moving from? Well, like half of them are moving from California, right? So like I don't know, like like these lines have to be blurring, right? You know, like the people that are here that you're talking about are actually people that moved here from Silicon Valley. Like, but I do think that as a general rule, if you're going to take like the average of people, I think that there's a stronger work ethic there, and it's something that I hear from some frustrated CEOs who say people don't, you know, like there people get in at 8 in the morning and they work till 8 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock at night, you know, and here people are leaving at 6 o'clock, you know, like, and they're frustrated by it, you know, so I do hear that frequently. I think it all depends on your culture and your company and who you hire and what you create. But I think that is true. I think it's going to be balanced by a couple other things. I think people that come to Austin are generally moving here with quality of life as a major factor of their decision. That's why, I mean, they're choosing to move here and they're coming here, and part of their thing is like, this is a place I want to live, and like, it's not like, oh, this is a place I want to sit in an office and work, 10, like as much, to 120 hours a day. It's like, no, I want to come have a life here and grow my family here or whatever, right? And so that's why Austin's so popular and why everybody's coming here. And the good side of that is, it's actually retaining talent is a lot easier. Like people that do that are much less likely to just like hop to the next job. Whereas in Silicon Valley, from what I hear from talking to lots of people, it is much more common that like whatever the hottest startup is, like sucks all the talent to it. And people come to this.
Well, they say they're helping them to get another job. That's how you get somebody to work for you. You actually help them to leave.
Yeah, right. And so all those things make it, there are some pretty big trade-offs about the cost of attracting or retaining talent. And I think the balance of that is still really good for here for the cost of talent, the ability to retain that talent, and then what you get out of it. The last thing that someone said to me a few months ago that really stuck with me, I thought was a really great insight into the difference between Silicon Valley and Austin in particular. But I think it's also kind of, again, Silicon Valley versus lots of other places probably. But kind of like you said, like, nobody gives a shit about Silicon Valley. Like, nobody goes to Silicon Valley and is like, I'm going to build my life in Silicon Valley. No one's like, I want to make Silicon Valley the best place in the world. Everyone's like, I'm going to take as much as I can from Silicon Valley and I'm going to go back home. Right? Like, I'm going to get the hell out of here because it sucks. Like, I mean, seriously, like, that is, unless you're like the richest person in the world and it's great, like, for most people, like, that's what it is, right? And that's their attitude going to Silicon Valley. And so, it's kind of a hellhole, like, it's not a place where you really want to go live, and it has all these problems and everything's going on.
It's a black hole for the soul.
And people that come to Austin are coming here, to build their lives and to plant roots and start their families and, like, be part of this community. And like what you see here is like we're all building something, like like we're all part of something, and that's really it's different. And I don't know, like there's trade-offs to it. I don't think this is black and white. There's things Silicon Valley is really good at, right? And it's not black or white in that also like you can have an office in Silicon Valley and an office in Austin. Like you can hire people in both places. Like you can do different things. But I think that's a really interesting insight into the trade-offs that made a lot of sense to me.
I had a question on mentors. Just curious, like we know Capital Factory, there are a bunch of great mentors. What other places should you look for, and how are the general cultures since I'm new in town? Typical approach, and what are they looking for out of the process?
I can talk about Mass Challenge's approach.
Yeah.
So Mass Challenge, we have a global footprint for our mentors. So they literally over 1,000 from all over the globe. Here in Texas, we had 330 last year experts, and 89 of them were actually mentors in the program. And so our mentors, what we are looking for to support our startups are investors, entrepreneurs, people who are partners with us that want to come in and really get to know the startups, and then also we have people who have functional expertise or like a very specific knowledge set that could be good for a startup in a different industry. And we go through a complete vetting process for both the startups and for the experts that serve as mentors. So by the time they start connecting with each other, we know mentor A is looking for this type of startup in this type of industry, and then
accelerators, and each one has a mentor network around it. And to be honest, there's a lot of people that are part of all the mentor networks, that participate in all of them, and so that can be reached in a bunch of different ways. there's different levels of like being part of a network and what can you tap into. We're part of the Union network, which is union.vc, and that's a global network that, you know, one of the benefits is there's mentors and lots of places you can tap into. But you know, when you say the word mentor, you can mean a lot of different things, and that can be like, hey, I'm going to ask you a question, and you're going to give me an answer kind of thing, and then there's like, oh, we're going to develop a deep long-term relationship kind of thing too, right? And I think, you know, in my experience, the most meaningful mentor relationships happen in person over time, right? And it's really about, you know, finding people that you really connect with, and you know, and we do a lot of things to try to be smart about matching and kind of do that in a smart way, and in the end, like it's still dating, like, you know, like it's still chemistry and people and, you know, things like that. As far as for Capital Factory, what I think is most unique about our mentor network, we have 2 tiers to it, and the tier for our accelerator is it's really primarily founders who have built companies that have raised a lot of money, that have sold for a lot of money, who are angel investors, and that's usually like the best people you want to go talk to. And I think we've got a really strong roster of those people that often that's often the only way you're going to get to talk to them.
Sorry, you said the only way you're going to get to talk to them is by being in the accelerator?
I'm assuming you don't already know them through some other way. Like we have a lot of them that are in that group. That's the only place that they do it. They don't mentor anywhere else.
I'd also say if you're looking for a mentor, like find a community leader and ask. At Mass Challenge, we'll open our network to entrepreneurs for limited, but we'll open our network for entrepreneurs outside of the program that are like very directed, pointed in the type of support that they've needed, and there have definitely been startups I've worked with in that capacity.
Okay.
And for instance, for naive angel investors that they would like to grow their knowledge, you have also a kind of mentor program or connections, or?
So if you're looking to learn more about angel investing, one of the best resources is the local angel group, the Central Texas Angel Network, and they actually they do member education programs where they kind of do some things to help teach you best practices on an ongoing basis, right? And they're teaching, learning from each other. They're part of the Angel Capital Association, which is like the trade group of all the angel groups kind of thing. So they have education that comes out of that. So that's a great resource. And a big reason why people join an angel group is to like be around a bunch of other angel investors and kind of learn from them, right? You know, and you know, you can listen to what they say and follow what they do at the beginning. Gordon, who I mentioned earlier, who does our Founders Academy, also does an angel academy a few times a year, which is a similar type of program focused on angel investing. And Gordon's awesome, so that's like a really good program as well. So if you look for Angel Academy, that's typically happening on a pretty regular basis. Kelsey might be able to look and see if she knows if there's one scheduled. I don't know if there's anything coming up, but
he just dropped out.
But you just doing it in San Antonio?
Oh, in San Antonio actually? No.
He just did one recently in San Antonio.
I'll have to double check.
And usually, like these things, most of what we do, we stream as well, so you don't have to be there in person to see it. But Gordon's the guy from my end, and then CTN is a great resource.
Do you need to be accredited to be a member of CTN?
I believe so, but I'm not 100% sure, but I believe so. You usually have to be accredited to make angel investments.
Can you get accredited just through any financial institution, or?
You don't get accredited if there's like a checklist. It's like
you don't have to get somebody to say you're a
You just self it. It's just like it's literally like I make more than $400,000 a year, or my net worth is more than like I don't know the exact numbers.
Okay.
But you just check the boxes.
So there's no.
Yeah. Nobody like checks it like or anything like that.
All right. So where does the mentorship typically end? Where does it transition into, you know, becoming an advisor or a board member? And what are the you know, going rates? And,
what are the what?
The going rates.
Oh, going rates. Well, I work with really early stage startups. So for me, and what we support in our program, that we want that relationship to last as long as possible. And if it forges such a great relationship and connection between the founder and the mentor, and it evolves into an advisor or a board seat from there, like we consider that a win because we introduced you in the beginning stages, and now you've been with the company for the whole life cycle. So that's really cool from our point of view. Later stage companies, I'm going to toss to this guy. to answer about, as far as like what the cost is and how that relationship grows.
Yeah, and I think our situation at the early stages is very similar. You know, the idea of the mentors that are available through a program like this, through office hours, that's a fairly constrained, well-defined time commitment that they're making. And what you can expect from them is what they could easily do to help you, either in the time that you have with them, or maybe in some short follow-up or something like that. And that's it's obviously that's typically them telling you something, teaching you something, sharing something with you, or making an introduction. Making an introduction is like one of the most valuable things you can ask a mentor or one of these resources go do, and that's often super helpful as they just connect you to somebody else, who connects you to somebody else, who connects you, eventually gets you to something that really helps. But that really matters. So that's the kind of stuff you expect from this pay it forward, no compensation kind of thing. And some people will go way above and beyond that and surprise you because they're just awesome. That's just what they do. Which would typically either be some advisory shares, some equity as an advisor, which is going to often range in kind of like the 0.25% to 2% range, probably at an early stage company, depending on how much they're engaged and how much time they're putting into it, or possibly just sometimes people pay them. Usually people don't want money, but sometimes they pay them to help, or things like that. But it's really just like a consulting arrangement at some level. But very common, and in a similar way, we consider that a big win. We're speed dating, we're trying to help you meet all the right people, and the speed dating process itself is helpful. And that should make some connections and help you. But the real win is that you fall in love, and you guys make some connection, and you go have your own meetings, and go through whatever you're gonna do. Do whatever you're gonna do.
And adding on to what he said about paying and where does that connect, another benefit of accelerators, or at least Dream It when I was there, running the mentor program was our thing. So I know that those mentors got an equity stake in that fund. So the accelerator was kind of paying on behalf of the startup at that time so that they could get a little bit more of extra work out of them.
Another question. Regarding the lawyers are really important and a startup community. So I have two questions. The first one is how strong is the lawyers here in the Austin? And the second one is does Capital Factory or Mass Challenge or other accelerators have a good support for start to bring together cool startups with lawyers, or is part of the accelerator program as well, or just a mentorship?
So yeah, there's a lot of great legal lawyers here in town who specialize in working with startups, and I could rattle off names, but there's a bunch of them.
I mean, you have the big firms, but sometimes
generally not big firms. These are generally kind of smaller, 3 to 20 person firms that really mostly just work with startups and are more reasonably priced than something like a Wilson Sonsini, which is a great firm, but is a big firm and is going to be more expensive. So there's a lot of good options for that. And most of the accelerators or groups you might join or be part of will have some standard documentation, for example, and you can find it on the internet as well. We have a convertible note, and it's we're not your lawyers, but everybody uses the same damn convertible note. We'll be here's the note, use the note, right? Or simple transactions that frequently happen. And then what was the third part of the question?
Oh yeah, because it's just
sorry. And then every one of the mentor networks will typically have lawyers.
Oh yeah, totally.
Right. And so that's the last letter connect. So that's how they connect. The way we connect you with lawyers, it's two things. It's either you can get office hours with some of them. We don't put a lot of lawyers on office hours because you want entrepreneurs. But we've got one patent attorney, and so you can go ask them, hey, should I get a patent on this? There's somebody you can go talk to for free, right? And a few ththings like that. We actually have a psychologist on as a mentor. You can go people do counseling sessions in the middle of the co-working space.
Awesome.
Because this is hard. Yeah, I'm actually she books up all the time. She's totally full. But but the other way, the main way you get lawyers is it's through the mentor network a different way. The main way you get any kind of service provider or lawyer, because one, it's a very personal decision. There's not just here's the best lawyer. It's the best lawyer for you, and the best lawyer for you is not necessarily the best lawyer for me, because it's about how we work together and what you get along with, right? There's a couple good lawyers, you got to figure out the best one for you. And so So it's really, that's a matching process. And then also the best lawyer today is not the best lawyer 6 months from now. Like, it's like that person gets really busy and then suddenly they're not the best lawyer. You know, it's like, so you really kind of need to know, like, who's the best lawyer for me right now. And the way I see that happen the most is actually, it is through the mentor network, but what happens is you meet with, say you come into a group like Mass Challenge or this, you meet 50 mentors, like over the course of a couple months maybe. You meet like a lot of, I really like that person, they get me, like, I trust them, you know, like, and that's who you ask. You're like, hey, who's your lawyer? Who do you use, right? And they're like, they are gonna have some people that they have worked with, and you're gonna feel comfortable with them because you have this thing in common. Does that kind of make sense? Like, that's how you get a lawyer. And maybe you ask like, you probably can't go wrong, and then you find the one that you kind of connect with.
I also know that, so Mass Challenge engagement pretty much the same way. Get lawyers to be mentors, have them come and host events, be classroom facilitators, kind of forge those connections. But there are also some accelerators out there that partner with law firms to be like a dedicated resource for the duration of that program, help with stock purchase agreements, and you know, getting your S corp or LLC or whatever type of company you want to become, and like that's part of the program. And of course, that's like lead gen for the law firm. However, on your side, at the end of the accelerator, there's like no need for you to continue that relationship if you don't want to. But I think there have been several back in Philadelphia that like continued. And even in Mass Challenge, we have one attorney, a patent attorney, who serves as a mentor that connected with EQO and has done all of the patent attorney work for EQO, who, if you don't know, is the startup that's helping solve Austin's zebra problem right now.
Any other questions? Well, that was easy. One more.
More generally, I guess, to the Austin tech scene, have y'all seen trends or just what is more popular now in terms of what types of startups are coming around? So like fintech, cybersecurity, that sort of thing?
Well, our goal is to bring more startups to Austin. So we're industry agnostic, and we also have an impact focus. So because of that, we're looking for people that are really trying to solve like massive issues at scale. So the Mentor Method, who won the diversity pitch competition here, they're focused on affecting systemic change through diversity inclusion programs in large corporates. But she's also a SaaS platform, and this is like the SaaS capital of the world, more or less, right? So for us, when we're going out there, we're looking at startups across all industries, not just like tech trends and stuff. So I see an uptick across everything that way.
AI. Everything is AI. There's plenty of other interesting places, but I'd say that's a mega trend across everything. Blockchain's also still really strong, not Bitcoin, but blockchain, there's a lot of stuff happening with that. So I think those two are pretty, platform level technologies that are going to affect a lot of things. Every other interesting space, we're seeing lots of stuff going on. There's health, real estate tech, retail, and e-commerce. There's like a lot of other places where there's a lot going on. Robotics, computer vision, but I'd say that the biggest trends are probably AI and blockchain. Awesome. Well, that's probably a good place to wrap. So thank you all for coming and joining us today. Thank you, Dana, for coming by. One more reminder that Mass Challenge's applications are open right now. We do applications every month, so we have a rolling cycle. So every month we interview companies on the first Friday of the month. So we just had our most recent cycle. So you can apply at any time. And Kelsey, who you mentioned before in the back, if you want to talk about Capital Factory, is the person to talk to. I think from here we go into the kitchen, where there's probably some food and some drinks and stuff. And I'll hang out there for a bit. If you guys want to ask more questions, hopefully Dana can come too. Kelsey will be there. And if one thing I'd ask again, we just kind of started this off like, who do you need to meet? Who should you know? Like, well, we want to know the next person that should come here. So if you know someone else that's involved in tech and startups and they want to plug into the scene, then tell them that pretty much every Tuesday there's something like this going on here that anybody can come to. And there's always going to be somebody more interesting than me sitting next to me that you can ask questions of and talk to. And so we'd love to see, just want to see more people. Thanks.
Thank you.
been an accelerator, but I was trying to make it to the.
What other event are you going to?
My friends, husband and wife, business partners, speaking of French and that French startup scene.
There was some, storm tonight that I was interested in checking out. About growing food. Maybe even
Are you in that space, food?
No, not really.
Yes,
I
of course.
was in agriculture for a little bit.
Totally, yeah, I come now, I just kind of tiny in the kitchen, I'm gonna finish one now.
Yeah, we actually did
I
things.
can visit with you more, I wanna say hi to Dana.
Yeah. Nice to meet you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. I'm Dana. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Dana.
Yeah, it's good to see you too.
It's
okay.
Well, I think they're, I'm actually Excel, so I'm running a startup at the moment.
Somewhere to
Yes, at the moment. It's literally just like
Oh, awesome.
It's more just like trying to understand what's happening here, but
small.
there's ways to help.
Excel depends on also the brand also.
Awesome.
Oh, yeah.
So you probably have a great expert.
I know all too well. I'm always
So
in between.
masschallenge.org/expert. Let me write this down.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you.
What type of company were you a part of or have been a part of?
Yeah, so in the past,
So when you're starting
I just recently built a company that was basically software that was a do-it-yourself lead and enrichment service for small teams doing outbound marketing campaigns. Before I actually started a big parking company, which is funny that they talked about it, but it's an app that allows drivers to reserve discounted parking from their phones. And that's been kind of cool. So maybe we can help out some of those companies coming to the downtown.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the expert network, to finish what I was saying,
Oh, okay,
check
cool.
out that website and then you can apply, and like I said, there is a vetting process, so, but
And is
the
that only to,
experience.
is that only to help the Texas group? or
No,
is
it's
it
worldwide. Once you're in the system, as long as you're okay with it, any
Yeah.
startup that's ever been in a Mass Challenge program or
Yeah.
that comes in can connect with you through our platform.
Cool. Awesome. That's great. That's great. Is there anything else that we can probably do to help you?
Sure, you can recommend startups. You can just right now we're like laser focused on getting the applications in for this. So if you know any startups in the area that you want to recommend for it, that would be really awesome.
3 weeks old. I don't know
Yeah, I
too much. Just
understand.
being
It's
honest.
totally
So,
okay.
yeah.
No, it's like I swim in it, right? So
Yeah.
it's totally. Guys, I would say if your kicks off, it's really going all over.
Are they coming in?
They're coming in. They're coming in. Let me see her. This is Melissa. Sorry, I was like blocking her.
And I know she's applied, I met her at an event a couple months ago, and I'm not pulling up her name, her company focuses on breathing. Like not the woman, she's got this tech application,
So it's
and
good that it
it
gets
helps,
on.
because breathing is so critical to healing from a lot of different surgeries. Would you believe the hospital, they don't give us this. So it's an app that's kind of helps them, with that.
Oh, that is awesome.
And when I do that, can make a big difference, especially in the academic space.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And if you give information to the starter providers.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So when I saw her the next time, she was
That would be, I can imagine it being helpful. I would need to know where to start.
That is awesome. Oh, thank you so much, Tori. I appreciate that. That's really great.
You have all your team in place, asking to hire some people.
We do. We have Melissa who does
Yeah.
account client management right now.
And then also
Marisa who's at the Austin Forum for Technology right now with one of these tables.
That was, it sounded like you were speaking a different language to me, but I imagine if I ever get down that road.
And Lindsay who runs operations and Yvette who
Well,
leads
thank you, Dan. I
partnerships, and
appreciate
then there's
that.
Mike. So there's 7 of us. And one intern.
Yeah, that's what you
And one
That's a
intern.
good sized team, because I think that's easier.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Well, I did my talk for the first time at County 101 for Founders last night, just across the hallway there.
That's so awesome.
And so I'm getting some practice, so if that's something that Mass Challenge wants me to come and
Yeah,
do.
are you in the expert network? Because you have to be in the expert network to do that.
I've heard you talking to him about that, so no, not yet.
Okay.
So I need to do that piece.
Let me write it down for you too.
Sure.
Yes, so. You can just go there and you can apply there, and you can indicate how you want to be involved.
Like so.
Oh, there you go.
That's
Yeah.
Are you coming to eat?
I'm not. We have children to get to, so we gotta do all that. But it's really good to see you. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it. Yes, Lord, we will be around. Cranking away?
Yeah, I'm trying.
How many hours did you do?
I don't know. I should count.
I know it's like Marianne and I were emailing each other at like 11:30.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, some ridiculous hour. Startup people are probably.
I know, that's why they were asking that question about like, do you think people here are happier? I'm like, dude, it's the hustle of being a startup.
In certain ways, yes. In other ways.
Alright, so is Marianne in the kitchen?
She should be.
Say goodbye to her.
I'll have her in 1 minute. So 5:59 technically.
I have time. Is this yours?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. We need to break down that. I forgot about that.
Is it just the same idea? And then pull apart?
Yeah, you just gotta. But I don't think they're as easy to get apart as they were to get together. There's 2 down there. And then fold it up. Yeah.
Okay.
I would do one whole stick at a time.
Okay.
Let's try that again. Yeah. There's a joke here, you know.
I feel like, is this also one?
It is. These 2 up here. Perfect. Exactly, that is the exact joke. Just don't like to smack yourself with this one. There you go. Woo!
Oh, wait. Oh, okay.
Sorry,
You're
sorry,
good.
sorry.
You're good.
Will it fit in that bag? I have like a rubber band you can put on it. Sure.
I can need it to hold it together. Boy. So. Bam.
Alright.
Done.
Alright, grab this. And this.
You guys good in here?
Yeah, I'm gonna say goodbye to Marianne.
Yes.
Oh, God, I made it
Yeah, so this is like Mobility X. It's like the same kind of thing, like tables and chairs, classroom. And then this is a live streaming camera. There's one of these in every room, so you can live stream what's going on. And then, yeah, really cool artwork throughout the space. And then this is kind of cool. You can see like the atrium from here, like the lobby. So cool views everywhere. So this portion of the building is the Omni Hotel, and then this portion is the office space.
Yeah, I was gonna ask what is the
Yeah, it's the Omni Hotel. Go on in.
Thank you.
My table.
Oh, yep. I'll run to my desk and grab one.
My desk.
Think you're done. Oh, actually, it's right here. Cool. And you know how it goes into
basically just goes into the wall.
Yeah.
Then you change the inputs on the
Yep. I'll go ahead and switch the input for you now, so you don't have to worry about that.
Thank you.
And I'll get these chairs out your way unless you wanted to keep them for some reason.
I can get rid of them. Go.
My name's Kia, by the way. What's your name?
I'm Faye. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Cool.
Nice hoodie.
Thank you, thank you. It's you know who John Bellion is?
No.
He's a producer, rapper.
He's
not very well known, but I've been obsessed with him since high school. So I buy all his merchandise whenever I can to support him, you know? Okay, cool. Just have to go away. Just let me know if you need anything else. I'll be at the front desk.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.